Guys, I'm very, very happy to have you here. I'm so excited because we'll be diving into some areas in life that's just so exciting and that's life changing. Things that can transform your career and take you to the 1% of high income earners in your profession. This is powerful stuff. As I've been talking about this training for quite some time, and today finally I'm happy we can get the details of it. As I said, the training is called Influence and Communication Superpowers. That 99% of managers will never know, so you can ace any job interview and beat the pants of your competitors for any senior level job you want, guaranteed. Now I am a professional and I can boast of that, so I don't do anything without a guarantee. I know most people can get jobs. I've been getting jobs in the past through luck. You can get a job through luck, but when you come to Sylvester for help to get a job, I take you through a process that is void of any failure. So I do things that 99% of people don't do, so that at the end of the day you are guaranteed to get the job. That's what I do. So the things I do, the principles we'll be seeing in this training are principles that have been time tested since the beginning of time. They are principles about influence. They are what make people think. So it's like, if you want people to move, there are certain things you do that there is a software that's incorporated in every human being, that if you know how to manipulate that software, excuse me the pun, excuse me the word manipulate, but that's it's because I can't find any better one. But if you know how to really make that software function in your favor, you can get anything you want in life. It will just be a matter of time, because at least the principles themselves needs to be implemented, and there's a time of implementation to get each thing you want at each stage of your life. So we'll be looking at various principles that are called secrets of influential communication. There are 7 of them. You have your handout with you, so you can take notes, and at the same time you can follow me through the presentation. So let's start. The first principle is what I call sell what they want and not what you know or do. Now this is an area where a lot of people make a big mistake of only concentrating on what they know or what they do, rather than figuring out what your prospective hiring manager wants. So it's like we have this natural tendency to move inwards, to concentrate only about our own self. We don't take time to figure out what other people want. We don't take time to communicate in a way that resonates with other people, with other people's feelings. So we are so like self-centered naturally. It's only as we grow, we develop the skill gradually to get into other people's minds, to understand things from their perspective, and in order to communicate to them better. So now what I'm about to show you here, if you follow this method of really selling what you want, as I said, it will place you in the 1% of those who earn the highest income in your profession, in your particular profession. So how do you do that? There is a process for doing that, and that's there are 3 things you need to do. The first thing is to figure out what they want. Now you cannot sell them what they want if you don't even know what they want. So the first thing is to figure out what they want. Then the next thing is to give them or promise them what they want. And then point number 3 is to use the gold keys of influential communication to position and communicate your big promise. So in this first secret we are talking about, which is selling them what they want, not what you do, I'll be walking you through these 3 steps. So I just said we have to use we have to follow the 3 steps, figure out what they want, give or promise them what they want, and then use the 4 goal keys of influential communication to communicate what they want. Now, goal key number 1 says that it's all about the hiring manager, not you. So let's say you want a certain job. So in this case, I will take particular examples. So let's say you are currently the supervisor of a pack of cars, and you want to apply to become the distribution manager or fleet manager of a fast consumer good company that produces goods and sell. And they transport goods to customers through big trucks. Now you deal with very small cars, and you I don't know the type of cars you deal with, but I'm just giving an example here. Okay, so let me just explain. Let me just explain your resume before we. So you said in your resume that you oversee the delegation of duties for personnel operating the vehicles within the fleet, which include coordinating employee schedule, managing communication between the drivers and office, planning driving routes or alternate routes, as well as referring or solving problems. So in other words, your resume here talks about the duties you do. So if you I know you cannot see the resume, so don't bother. I'm explaining what's on the resume. So if you look at what you are saying here, you are communicating your duties. Now let's imagine that you want to be the fleet manager of a bigger company, and they have 3 problems. The one problem they have is that they have a lot of losses, a lot of cost that's due to accidents, due to drivers having accidents. Also, they have drivers that complain, so they don't serve the customers well. So they have failure deliveries because drivers either they don't show up at work on time, and when they come they complain, or they have a lot of accidents. So that's a number 1 problem. Now you are trying to appeal to that hiring manager that has that problem as number 1 problem. Looking at your resume here, there is nothing that communicates to the hiring manager that you can solve their problems, because here you talk about you manage personnel or personnel, you manage vehicles, you manage the scheduling of employees, you manage communication between them. But let's say the hiring manager, they have a way, it's so rampant in their company that they have people who always complain about drivers, and they have become used to it, and they have a name that they call drivers who complain. They call them lousy complainers drivers. So now you are talking here about drivers, how you manage employees, but they have a particular type of employees that they call the lousy complainers. People who they come to work late, and when you ask them that what happened, what made you to come to work late, they only tell you that I had my wife who was sick, or I did this or that. So now their mission, they decided in a meeting with the director of the company that they have to replace all complainers. So they have an internal language, a way they describe these drivers. They call them all complainers. You call them employees. So there's a disconnect between your resume and the resume of and what is in the mind of the hiring manager. So there's a disconnect. So there's lack of trust because you cannot speak their language. So that's just an example. So if you present this resume and I present a resume that says something like the three secrets to detect lousy complainer drivers fast and how to replace them before it's too late. If I say something like that in my resume, and you say you bring this your own type of resume that talks only about responsibilities and things that are not even clearly linking to what is in the hiring manager's mind, the hiring manager will trust me more. So that's what I'm talking about here. That's what I mean when I say meeting the conversation that's in the hiring manager's mind, entering the conversation that's in the hiring manager's mind. So there was a copywriter, somebody called Robert Collier in the 1930s, who was a very, very good salesman. He sold things like raincoats, books, and everything you can think of through mail order. So just so you know, he sends letters to people at their homes, and then he talks about these books, these raincoats he was selling, and all other stuff he was selling. And then the people buy. They send it. They put a check in the letter, in the return letter, and they send it to him to order the raincoat and all what he was selling. And he generated hundreds of millions of dollars to his clients, the people he was writing those letters for. So he was a consultant. He was specialized in writing letters. Now, there is a difference between writing a letter to somebody to do something and when you can place yourself in front of him to ask him to do that. If you place yourself in front of the person, you have time to answer his objections. So he can tell you that, okay, I have this question. My problem with this your item that I don't want to buy is because it doesn't solve this type of problem, or is because. So you can answer their objections because you are face to face with them. But if you are sending a letter, you don't know what objection the person has in their mind that will cause them to reject the letter. It's the same thing with your resume. If you are sending a resume, you don't know what objections they have in their mind to reject your resume. So what you need to do first is to figure out all their objections before even writing a word of your resume. Figure out all their objections one by one before answering all of them now in your resume and your cover letter before sending it. That's why Collier principle is very, very important. If you have to write, even if you have to speak, it's better to speak in a way that addresses all the objections rather than speaking and being interrupted by your audience because they want to ask you questions about the objections. So Collier principle here is very important. So that's something you need to note here. So how do you do that? How do you enter the conversation that's in their mind? You have to investigate. You have to ask questions. You have to enter into relationships with people working in that company so that they can give you vital information. If you are working in the same company, like Sesh, then you can know what is already happening in your company, and you can articulate things using the language that's used there. Now let me go to the next slide. So the next slide talks about perspectiving. So here we talk about why we are all poor salespeople by nature. I've already explained that. I said by nature we tend to be egoistic. We tend to be self-focused. We don't think about other people. But there is a basic law in life, which is the law of exchange. You cannot get what you want if you cannot give the other person what they want. So, and you cannot give them what they want if you don't know what they want. So you realize that everything in life is about exchange, and if you cannot put yourself in the perspective of the other person, seeing things from their perspective, that's what I call perspectiving. If you cannot do that, then your options are very, very limited. You cannot get what you want. So there are techniques of doing perspectiving that you need to know. You can either spend time with people working in that environment, make friends with them, or read things that are coming from that environment, or be in their newsletter so that you can know what is happening there. As I said, these techniques, this is a concept part. I'm giving you the concepts, but the application of these techniques will be done individually with each person in this program. So I'll work with you individually to show you how to do your perspectiving for the particular job you want, so that you get the real knowledge, the real thing that's happening there with your prospective hiring manager. So the next thing is, as I've said, you don't sell hours. So when I read so many resumes, people talk about their responsibilities. You are selling work. So you are saying that, okay, I come from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'm responsible for delegating responsibilities. I'm responsible for coordinating drivers. I'm responsible for overseeing purchases. I'm responsible. That is work. You're selling work. You are not selling value. In the example of the driver, the fleet manager position I talked. So you are moving from a supervisor of a park of vehicles to a fleet manager of a bigger company. You need to know what they have as a problem. Their problem is that they have hundreds of millions of francs CFA that's lost through accidents, and they want somebody that can come there and realize that this is what we are losing, and talk about it in their resume, talk about it in the interview. So the first thing you need to first of all know, as I said, is that you need to know what their problems are and what are the possible questions they'll be asking you before even writing a word of your resume. So you start from the interview asking yourself what are questions, what are key issues they have before even thinking about what you will say. So a shift from the disease cause responsibilities to really talking about the value you can give somebody. Talk in terms of their language. Talk in terms of what is in their mind as their priorities. Hello, if you can hear me, say yes. Just type yes or while before we continue. So if you can hear me, say yes. Okay, good. So so I talk about I'll talk about the next goal key of influential communication, which is people want something that sounds like it was made specifically for them. So so as I said, if you said I know how to manage employees, to the director of distribution in a company who is looking for a fleet manager who wants to hear about I know how to fire lousy complainers, at that time you guys are no longer in resonance. So they have their dog whistle language. Dog whistle comes from, when you want to talk to a dog, there are certain sounds you make that only the dog can understand. So that's what they call dog whistle language. So what is that language that if you speak to a hiring manager, they will understand? How do you figure out that? It's the same thing. It falls under SecretNumber1. Really selling them what they want. What they want is also something that sounds like it was made specifically for them. They don't want you to sound as if you are so generic, as if you are having a resume that tends to solve every problem. No, that's not what they want. To trust you. They want to know that this guy knows exactly the challenge he is coming to solve. And you communicate that by using dog whistle language, the internal language that they use. Okay, the next thing is there is a difference. So let me give you some examples here, okay? So that you know exactly the importance of the using dog whistle language. Now, are you seeing the two phrases on the screen? If you can see my screen, say yes. And let me explain. So there's a difference between the two phrases here. One says how to stop your husband from cheating, okay? And then the other one says how to make your husband loyal to you. There's a difference here. Now, grammatically speaking, they might sound as if they are the same, but in terms of emotions, because let me just tell you, people can only move when they are emotionally involved with what you're saying. So you are not. Let's assume that you are speaking to a group of women or a woman who wants a solution of how to stop her husband from cheating cheating. So let's say you put it this way. There are two ways you can communicate that. You can tell her that, okay, I will help you, show you how to stop your husband from cheating. And then the other way is I'll show you how to make your husband to be loyal. You have two choices. So let's see what's the difference between the two choices. Now, when you use the word cheating, I will stop your husband from cheating from you. Maybe the woman has seen her husband cheating, and that particular scene of seeing her husband cheating creates anger in her mind. It creates pain, it creates jealousy, and it creates fear of loss. So at that particular time, maybe she caught her husband with a lady, kissing that lady in his office. At that particular scene, when you use the word cheating, it triggers the images that she saw in that particular scene. It brings back the anger she observed on that day. It brings back the pain she went through on that day. It brings back the jealousy she experienced on that day. And it brings back the fear that, hey, maybe this lady will end up taking my man away. So you have at least 4 emotions here that are being triggered just by using the word how to stop your husband from cheating. Now, when you use the other word how to make your husband loyal, there is no image. The image that's triggered here is the image of loyalty, the husband being with her. There is no danger, there is no anger, there is no pain, there is no jealousy, because when you say how to make your husband loyal to you, she sees loyalty. She sees it's just a little fuzzy feeling of how the guy is always around and things like that. So it doesn't have an emotional baggage. In communication, if the emotional baggage is small, the person will not move. Okay? If you get me, just say yes. I want to make sure that you're following me, because this is very important. So so there's a difference between the choice of words you use. Now let's take the other example. So these are other two statements. So you have you are appealing to the director of distribution of this fast good producing company. You want to leave from park supervisor of where you're working to the fleet manager of this bigger company, and your salary has to increase with that bigger responsibility. But this is your barrier. Your biggest problem is that you are not communicated in the language that will make this distribution director move. This distribution director, they have a rampant problem in their company. The rampant problem is that drivers, they don't sleep enough, so they take these trucks, they load goods in them, and then they carry them and they go and get accidents, and it costs the company money. So this is a recurrent problem that they have created a name for it, and the name they use to describe these drivers is called lousy complainers. How did this name came about? This name came about because imagine the director of distribution asking a driver that, okay, what made you to have the accident? The guy said, okay, I was so tired, I didn't have time to sleep. Or he said, what made you to come late to work today? Then he will give an excuse like, or my wife had my child had an issue. I was supposed to take my child to the hospital. My wife was not there. My wife went to work and things like that. Those are lousy complaints. Okay, so at the time the guy is responding to the question of the distribution director, the distribution director is feeling anger, pain, because the distribution director knows that this guy has not learned any lesson. So he will still go and commit the same accident. He will still come to work late, and so there will be a future loss that we will be expecting in this company, because these guys will still keep on making the same mistake. So at that time that this guy did not create this name lousy complainers for nothing. It's because of the images that he experienced in a session where he was asking one of the drivers why the accident happened or why he came late to work. And for that reason, he created a name for it. He said, man, I'm tired of your lousy complaints. Get out of my from my face. So at that time, he took that word lousy complainers and went to the meeting and said, okay, I want to recruit a fleet manager who will detect this type of lousy complainers. So it's like the first day you recruit a driver and you realize that he's giving a lot of complaints. How can you know that this type of driver is the person that will be a lousy complainer? So now you, as the person applying for the job, in your resume, you talk about dysfunctional drivers. Now, in your mind, you might think that the word dysfunctional drivers is the same as lousy complainers. But the problem is this: they don't have the same emotions. They don't trigger the same emotions. So it's like when the distribution director reads dysfunctional drivers, he might think that maybe it's somebody who is mad, or maybe it's somebody who has a disease, or a mental illness, or maybe it's somebody who just happened to be dysfunctional for a day, but he can be better in another day. So he'll be doubting that, is it really the lousy complainers I'm talking about? He will not trust you. Do you see what I'm saying? Say yes if you see what I'm saying. So this is very important. This is double important. You need to master this principle very well. And guys, sorry, I've been taking one example all along, because I don't want to change examples so much, because if I change examples, you will not understand exactly what I'm saying. But understand that this is the first part of the training. There is module 2, which is about taking these principles now and applying them in your particular case. And even in the next session of module 1, we have 2 sessions that are remaining. So session 2 of module 1 and session 3 of module 1, we'll start go individually. So I'll put everybody on a hot seat. So I can say, okay, Valerie, let's take your particular situation. We'll look at your resume. We'll look at some of the questions that your prospective hiring manager might be having in their mind. And I will challenge you and say, okay, the way you are communicating in your resume, let's assume that you are applying for this particular company, they have this particular problem. Your resume does not resonate with it. So I will take each person in the next sessions, so that we'll go around the group and each person can learn from others' problems in the group. Is that okay? Say yes. So this is very powerful, because it makes all the difference. So again, if you look at the 2 words here, lousy complainers, for that particular person who created that word for it, it means anger, it means pain and loss, and it means guarantee of future pain and loss. To him, that word lousy complainers is of a high value. To him, dysfunctional drivers is almost meaningless. It's ambiguous. So you might be thinking that you are using big language here, big grammar, but the grammar does not make sense here. Because when somebody names something in their mind, they create an image of that thing in their mind. So they store the image of that thing with a name in their mind. When they say lousy complainer, it's a phrase that anytime you talk about it, it triggers an image. But if they don't have any image in their mind that has emotions called dysfunctional drivers, when you talk about it, nothing comes up and they don't feel the impact of it. Okay, so let's go on. So the next goal key of influential communication is what I said. People buy stories, not things. Okay, people buy stories, not things. The reason is that we are wired naturally through storytelling. So it's like we've been used to storytelling. This species called human beings has evolved from times where there were no books, there was no writing. The only thing we learned through stories, where we sat down in a small family, the man, the wife, and the children, and the man is explaining things that used to happen to the children through stories. So our DNA is like wired for stories. That's the best way we learn, and that's how we store pictures. Another nice thing with stories is that they have images. That it's a movie. It's like a movie. So when you teach somebody in a form of a story, these images, they stay. So for example, if you want to use a story to explain how you can fulfill a promise, it helps the person to see you doing the job. So for example, rather than say I know how to discipline lousy complainers drivers. That is a statement, it's not a story. But what if you said a technique that I used last year, and that helped me to make a driver to tell me what happened exactly that caused the accident, and how it helped me to use that same technique on all other drivers, and help us avoid accidents by it helped us reduce accidents by 50%. That is a story, okay? Or you say how I made one driver to come to my desk and complain while crying that all along he has been lying to me. Now, when I see that story, I see a driver in front of your desk crying. I see the driver saying that he has been lying to you. I see a movie. So, since that's my point of interest, I want you to come. I see you working. I see you at your table as my distribution manager, my future distribution manager, and I see you making my drivers to come and tell you that, okay, I've been lying to you. I see an image. Now, do you see how the two approaches are completely different? Say yes while I take a glass of water. Hello? Serge?
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yeah, so a story leaves a vivid picture in the mind of the employer. Now, in one resume I did with one lady, the lady that you guys saw in the DVD, that talked about how she got the scholarship. She used to be a social worker, and their department was offering scholarships, but only for the best workers. So if you had the scholarship, you had to go to further studies, but you still need to you still need to be working at your current job, but having free tuition in University of California, and to follow this master's in social work program. So one of the things we did in her resume, we completely transformed her resume, and she was speaking the same way in terms of responsibilities, but we said somewhere that, okay, we said, and I want to read it so that I don't mix up what I'm saying here. She said, successfully removed. So their work is about making sure that children are not maltreated, okay, are not poorly treated by their parents. So here in the US, the work of social workers is very diverse, but her own particular case is that she is in charge of children, so child abuse. So this is one of the statements in her resume. I want you to visualize the story. She said, successfully removed a 3-year-old child from harm in absolute calmness and self-mastery while being threatened by the mother, saying, I will find you and blow your head off. Okay, now if you look at that, this is lady trying to remove a child from a home that's being maltreated by the mother, and the mother is threatening the lady that, okay, I will find you and blow off your head with a gun. Now, if you read that statement, you see an image. You see that lady trying to being calm, because she said, this is what she said: successfully remove a 3-year-old child from harm in absolute calmness. So you see her being calm and self-mastery while being threatened by her mother, saying, I will find you and blow your head off. So we put her mother's words in quotes, I will find you and blow your head off. So that triggers images. In other words, this is not an ambiguous statement. This is a statement that you cannot miss. You see that? If you just get what I said, just say yes before I move on. So that is the power. That is the power of this type of communication. Knowing what somebody wants and communicating it to them that way. So another thing is that it plays greatly on the emotions. So if you use stories, you can use images that are emotionally exciting, and it will incite somebody to action because they see themselves. Now, one thing you need to understand is that somebody can hardly listen to a story without putting themselves in the story. So they see themselves, they see that child in harm, they relate it to themselves, that either it might be their own children, or they see themselves in the story, and that is what makes it very powerful. Okay, now let's go to the next goal key, which is people want. Again, all these 4 goal keys, I'm showing you how to figure out what the hiring manager wants, how to make a big promise. So if you are making your promise, the way you have to make it, and then that is those are the 3 things. Okay. So the 3 things we just discussed at the start, I'm showing you now in detail how to execute them. Again, these are still the concepts. It's difficult to explain detailedly because everything here has to be applied in a specific way for a specific person, and we'll do that in the sessions of hot seats, and where I'll take everybody one-on-one, one at a time. So people want something new. This is goal key number 4. People want something new, unusual, and different. What does that mean? Now, if you meet a friend, probably they'll ask you what's new, or how are you doing, or what's new, what's happening at your end. People like what's new because that is the end. That's the ultimate quest of mankind. So they want changes. They want things changing for the better. So if a hiring manager has a problem and they have been using an old method of solving that problem, they in their mind they know that, okay, one of the things that's making them not to have results is because of their method. So if you say, okay, my method I'm coming to offer you is different, it is exciting to them because there it says that, okay, the fact that it's different and it is new, there is a promise or there is a hope that it will deliver the results. So that is the power of being different, sounding different from any other candidate when you are making your promises. So we've just been talking now for like 28 minutes, guys. If you can hear me, say yes, and before I continue, so say yes. So Valerie, can you hear me? Ashu Henry, can you hear me? Orok James, can you hear me? Emanuela Kiven, can you hear me? Okay. So Serge, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Emma Kiven too can hear me. Okay, good. So let's move on.